Frankly, my dear, I don't give a DMN. One line, one movie, and one illusion that shaped Hollywood forever. Gone with the Wind is remembered as the grandest love story ever filmed. But behind the sweeping romance and burning Atlanta lay a production that nearly destroyed everyone involved. It was chaos disguised as prestige. Directors were fired and replaced. Actors starved, collapsed, and fought each other. Studios burned entire backlots to the ground. And the very first Black Oscar winner was forced to sit at a segregated table while her white co-stars celebrated in the front. For decades, the movie has been sold as a story of timeless love. But the truth is much darker and far more shocking. What we're about to uncover is the hidden side of Hollywood's most famous epic: the lies, the breakdowns, the racism, and the desperation that turned a novel into a cultural myth. And at the end, I'll reveal a fact so unbelievable, it changes the way you'll ever hear the movie's most famous line again. Buckle up. This is the chaotic truth behind Gone with the Wind. The wildest casting search in Hollywood. The search for Scarlett O'Hara wasn't casting, it was hysteria. The producers launched a nationwide hunt that looked more like a presidential campaign than a movie audition. Department stores hosted Scarlett look-alike contests. Women across the country dyed their hair, practiced Southern accents, and sent letters begging to be considered. More than 1,400 women were screened. 31 of them tested on camera. The process dragged on for 2 years, costing over $100,000 a fortune in the 1,930 seconds. By the end, the studio was nearly bankrupt before filming even began. It was less about finding an actress and more about manufacturing a spectacle. Audiences hadn't even seen the movie, and already they were obsessed. But while the country went mad trying to crown their Scarlett, the woman who ultimately got the role wasn't discovered by the system she forced her way in. Vivien Leigh's relentless pursuit. Vivien Leigh wasn't supposed to be Scarlett. David O. Selznick dismissed her immediately, saying she was too British and too unknown. Out of hundreds of ballots, she received just 1 vote. But Leigh refused to take no for an answer. She followed Selznick to parties, crashed script readings, and made herself impossible to ignore. Some even called it stalking. She pushed and pushed until finally he caved. It wasn't talent alone that won her the role. It was relentless persistence, bordering on obsession. Leigh knew this was the role of a lifetime, and she refused to let Hollywood shut her out. But the moment she secured the part, the chaos only escalated. Directors fired, broken, and replaced. George Cukor, the film's original director, had spent 2 years preparing. He helped shape the characters, coach the actors, and design the movie's vision. Then, just 19 days into filming, Selznick fired him. The official excuse? Creative differences. The real story? Whispers of conflict with Clark Gable, and rumors about Cukor's sexuality made him expendable. Enter Victor Fleming. He was brought in as the savior, but the job nearly killed him. The pressure was relentless. Selznick micromanaged every detail, and the shoot spiraled out of control. Fleming collapsed on set, suffering what today would be recognized as a severe mental breakdown. Production didn't stop. Another director, Sam Wood, stepped in quietly to film certain scenes. By the end, Gone with the Wind had 3 directors, and none of them left unscarred. And while directors were being replaced like spare parts, Hollywood's king of romance was hiding a secret that made filming the love scenes unbearable. Clark Gable's dirty secret. Vivien Leigh dreaded every kiss with Clark Gable, and it wasn't about chemistry. Gable suffered from severe dental problems and chronic bad breath. His co-stars quietly complained, and Leigh, forced into passionate close-ups, often struggled not to recoil on camera. The crew kept bottles of mouthwash on standby, but it barely helped. Leigh privately described the kisses as torture, and sometimes entire scenes had to be reshot because her disgust showed too clearly. Hollywood's greatest leading man, the face of rugged masculinity, was a nightmare to kiss. The romance audiences swooned over was held together not by passion, but by Lee's sheer acting skill. But while she fought through every kiss, the studio fought with something far more dangerous: fire. Burning Atlanta for real. The burning of Atlanta wasn't just a special effect, it was a real inferno. Selznick torched 10 acres of MGM's backlot, letting sets go up in flames while cameras rolled. The fire grew so intense that it nearly spread beyond the lot. Sparks ignited nearby buildings, equipment melted from the heat. Several crew members were injured, and one stuntman had to be hospitalized after catching fire. What audiences saw as cinematic spectacle was actually one gust of wind away from a real disaster that could have destroyed Hollywood itself. But fire wasn't the only danger lurking on set. For Vivien Leigh, the role of Scarlett came with a deadly price. Vivien Leigh's dangerous transformation. To maintain Scarlett's iconic 18-inch waist, Leigh was pushed into a routine that would horrify modern audiences. Coffee, cigarettes, and pills replaced food. Corsets were pulled so tight they left permanent marks. On long shooting days, she fainted between takes from hunger and lack of oxygen. Studio doctors monitored her daily, terrified she might collapse during key scenes. But production didn't slow down. The show had to go on. The extreme toll never truly left her. Many believe this brutal regimen triggered the mental health struggles that haunted her later in life. Beauty wasn't just a standard in 1939 Hollywood, it was a weapon that nearly destroyed her. And while Leigh was sacrificing her body, another star was being humiliated in ways that history rarely acknowledges. Segregated premieres and Hattie McDaniel's Oscar. Hattie McDaniel made history as the first black performer to win an Academy Award. But her success was wrapped in cruelty. When Gone with the Wind premiered in Atlanta, she wasn't allowed to attend because of Georgia's segregation law. And at the Oscars, where she won for Best Supporting Actress, she was forced to sit at a small table in the back of the room, segregated from her co-stars. It was a moment of triumph poisoned by racism. Hollywood celebrated her talent while reminding her of her place in its hierarchy. McDaniel's win should have been a breakthrough. Instead, it revealed just how deep the industry's hypocrisy ran. And she wasn't the only one whose experience with the film turned sour. Backlash, broken careers, and Hollywood fallout. Even before the premiere, civil rights groups protested the film, warning that its romanticized view of slavery was dangerous. The black press published editorials condemning it as propaganda. They were right, but mainstream audiences didn't listen. Actors themselves weren't immune. Leslie Howard, who played Ashley, openly hated the movie, calling it terrible and embarrassing. Olivia de Havilland, who portrayed Melanie, used her real-life frustration with the studio system to fuel her performance, later suing Warner Brothers in a case that changed Hollywood forever. Even success became a curse. Many actors were typecast, never able to escape their roles. Vivien Leigh struggled for years to find parts that weren't Scarlett. Butterfly McQueen, who played Prissy, was pigeonholed into offensive roles and eventually left Hollywood in disgust. And Selznick himself? He never repeated the magic. After chasing bigger and bigger productions, he died bitter, broken, and haunted by the fact that his greatest triumph was the one thing he could never top. But none of that compares to the biggest twist of all, a truth that changes everything you think you know about the movie's most famous line. Bonus fact: frankly, my dear, I don't give a DMN. The line wasn't even in the original ending. In early cuts, Rhett Butler left without saying a word. Test audiences hated it. Selznick panicked. Months later, he called Gable back just to record that one line. It was an afterthought, a last-minute rewrite. Yet it became the single most quoted line in Hollywood history. What fans remember as a perfect ending was really just desperation, a patch job that turned into legend. Outro. Gone with the Wind is still celebrated as cinema's greatest epic. But peel back the curtain and what you find isn't romance or nostalgia. It's fire, breakdowns, exploitation, and controversy. A production built on chaos that scarred almost everyone who touched it. Maybe that's fitting. After all, the movie itself was about a world that never truly existed, built on illusions that audiences wanted to believe. Hollywood didn't just tell a story, it created a myth. And the question remains, if this is the truth behind the greatest film of all time, what other Hollywood classics are hiding secrets just as dark?